In the last half of the first inning, the Brooklyn Dodgers now will have their turn. They will go against Whitey Ford. So Whitey Ford, the man with the tantalizing curveball, is out there. Whitey has many speeds on his curveball, and he also has a screwball. Ford's ready. One delivers. Curve right. Outfield straight away. Reach plate. Ford delivers. There's a fastball inside. 1 ball, 1 strike.
It's card number 153 from that 1953 Bowman Color set. It's a beautiful card. I remember seeing this card on eBay and couldn't hit the buy it now. It was a buy it now. I couldn't hit it fast enough. This is a hard card to find centered. And this one's pretty nice. It's, of course, Whitey Ford. I don't know why I was like saying that as if you didn't already know. We all know it's Whitey Ford, right? Beautiful card. And on the back, I love that, everybody just thinks of him as Whitey Ford, but this is a little reminder. That's actually his nickname, right? With the quotations. This actually turns out to be the very last Hall of Famer in this set. So obviously a high number Hall of Famer. Beautiful card. From a beautiful set. If it's card number 153, certainly it must be session number 153 of Cardroom Live. No, contrary to popular belief, it's not a show. Sometimes we slip and call it a show. Sometimes I can slip and call it a show, but it's not a show. It's a hangout for fellow vintage collectors, whether we have guests or not. And we do have guests tonight. Most of the time, we're just wasting time looking at and talking about old cardboard, and through it all, we do try to make it time well wasted. And dare I say, we've been doing just that for the past 4 years. So if you're here with us live, welcome. Welcome to my fellow YouTubers. Welcome to the commenters, to the folks from all over social media land. And if you're new to Cardroom Live, don't be afraid to say hello. You are among cardboard friends. I'm happy to say that I've learned over the years of people joining the community, making friends, starting friendships out of Cardroom Live. And that's a beautiful thing. And that's what it's really all about. This is the live stream where everybody knows your name. It may take us a few tries if you're new, but we'll learn yours soon enough. So don't be afraid to say hello. If you're listening to this later, however, you may be doing one or more of the following activities. You might be going to or coming home from work. Perhaps you're searching for holiday presents. Christmas is right around the corner. Maybe you're sorting cards. Maybe you're looking at eBay or auction sites, rolling out those meatballs, walking the dog, sitting on the john, putting the kids to bed, battling raccoons in the backyard. Maybe you're wondering if somebody's going to show an Eddie Waitkus card. Why not? Maybe you're wondering what other kind of Mike Foolery we're going to get into tonight. Whatever you might be doing, I do hope you get something out of the next hour. If you want to get in touch or have ideas for future sessions, you can email me at bowman53channel@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram, bowman53_Alex, on X, 1953 Bowman Color, and on Blue Sky, Bowman53. And of course, all that information can be found in the description below. This session of Cardroom Live is brought to you by Wilson Frank's Hot Dogs. Yes, free autographed colored photos of famous big league stars now in every pound package of Wilson certified Franks. I actually haven't eaten dinner yet, so I'm getting hungry. Think of it, the wonderful Franks that you get with at famous ballparks like Chicago's Comiskey's Park. Start collecting a set and ask your mom to get Wilson's certified Franks tomorrow. There's one card in every package. Ted Williams says they're the best cards he's ever seen. And I'm sure that he just genuinely felt that and didn't get a paycheck for saying it. And if you really like Wilson's Frank's hot dogs, head over to reindeerstudios.com where you can find a floating hot dog t-shirt. And who doesn't like floating hot dogs in their life? So good evening to everybody. Happy December. The Hall of Fame did a thing. I think some people are kind of not happy about it. Got some opinions about it. I'm sure there's some folks talking about it in the chat. Let's see who's at the bar. Jacob first, once again. Hello, Jacob. Mike, the sports history collector, is here with his wrench with a claim of seeing Eddie Wakus working at the local Burger King with Elvis and JFK. Now that's a hell of a Burger King. Give us the address, Mike. Let's head over there. The Dog Ate My Card is here with some information about Eddie Wakus in case anybody was interested. Mike Polina is here. Good to see you, Mike. Spartan Card Collector has his tree up and the outdoor lights are done. Good for you. It's time for some baseball talk. Peter B is here. Ruben is here. Greetings, cardboard crazies. Indeed. Rick Acosta, Dodger Card Collector, is here. Hello, Rick. Remember to ignore Scott and Don if they show up. At this point, I think everybody knows that. Greetings from Cleveland. Speak of the devil. Reindeer Studios is here. Dom is here. Indians legend Jeff Kent. Sven is here from Benwood, West Virginia. That would be kind of fun. Where's everybody from? Where are you from? Let us know in the chat. B-Roth, Brian is here from the Antarctic Sea where the temperature is 15 degrees Fahrenheit. That's actually probably true because I think Brian is on a unique trip. Brian, between your adventure in the Antarctic and Card Room Live, I hope you're having a good evening. Hello to FTS Tool 462 from Canada. Very cool. Ross Loves Cards is here. Good evening to you. Larry is here. Hello, fellow collectors. Who else is here? Peacemakers Cards is here. Chasing Majors is here. Mookie Chilson with a little bit of a factoid here. Star rookie Whitey Ford won the clinching game 4 of the 1950 World Series for the Yankees against the Phillies. Eddie Wakus led off and went 1 for 3 in the loss. Way to just make that knife go a little bit deeper, Mook. Appreciate it. Vintage Cards is here. Submitting Jeff Kent rookie cards to PSA. Peeps Wax Packs is here. Good evening. Mr. Tony from Psyched on Baseball Cards is here. Caliber 3 Collector, Mr. Wilhelm. Mitchell, what are you doing here, man? I thought, did you try to trick me, man? I thought you weren't going to be here. I guess it's cool that you're here. There's the other part of the odd couple. Don from Don's Field of Dreams is here. That's actually what I don't want, Mike, but thanks for, highlighting those things. Called Shot Cards is here. Orlando, A Collector's Dream is here. Kudralev is here. Rip Fan 8 is here. Mr. Craig from Pastor Craig is here. John, who just finished up a live stream, is here and in mourning, along with a lot of other folks. Vintage Oddball Cards is here. Yeah, let's work on that, Don. And I think we're done with the bar roll call. So glad to see everybody else is here tonight. We've got some guests waiting. It only took me 10 minutes, guys. Let's bring these guests in. We're going to have a spirited round of Cards with Stories. We've got 3 guests in here. I'm going to bring in the guy that's been on this live stream time and again, but it's been a while actually, so glad to have him back. It's Drew of Vintage Legacy. Drew, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you tonight, Alex?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. Glad that you're here, Drew.
Oh, thanks for having me.
One of the things that I think Drew is really great at, just to make you feel embarrassed for a second, Drew, is telling stories about the cards that he has. And you've been doing a really good clip of making videos recently, sharing your cards and sharing interesting insights. So no pressure, Drew. I'm expecting a lot.
That's okay. Stories can be repeated, and they will be tonight.
Great. Okay. And we've got 2 other guests, and I think these are both first timers. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in Melissa from Sports Guru 17. Melissa, how are you tonight?
Good, Alex. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Glad to have you. And we also have Jay Hawker, Vintage Cards Mike, who is just when it rains, it pours, Mike, right? You just finished up one live stream, and here you are again. Maybe not with the same level of enthusiasm as you had like a half hour ago.
Oh, I definitely will bring some enthusiasm. I just was sad for my man Dale Murphy not getting into the Hall of Fame.
Right. Well, I guess he's not in, but we can still talk about Dale Murphy. We can still enjoy him.
Yeah,
absolutely. All right. So Drew and Mike and Melissa, we're going to have a round of Cards with Stories. And the idea behind Cards with Stories, for anybody that's new to Card Room Live, each of these three collectors has already picked out a handful of cards, and we're going to go around and take turns here. And they're going to be sharing a card and something about that card, a story behind that card. It might be about the player, it might be about the team or the year, or some interesting piece of baseball history. Maybe it's hobby related, maybe it's related to how they acquired the card or just the significance of the card. Maybe it's a more personal story. And that's kind of the fun of this, is it's a chance to get to know these three collectors a little bit better, not just to see their cards, but also to learn a little bit about how they collect, how they see cards, and what their sort of personality and style is in terms of how they collect. Because to me, it's not just about getting the card. You can have a cool card, but I like collections where I can sort of see the person's personality in terms of the cards and what they mean to them. And so that's kind of the fun of this. And we're going to go around and get to see some of these cards. So Melissa, let's start with you.
Okay. Well, Mickey Mantle was my dad's favorite player, and I like magazines. So this is one of the grails of magazine collecting. It's Mickey Mantle's first cover on Sports Illustrated. But that's not the card I'm going to show you. The card I'm going to show you is the very first Mantle card I ever got. And it's the 57. I got it when I was about 12, 13 years old. And I was at my local card shop, and he had it up on with a bunch of other cards. And he had $90 on it. And the reason is there's a crease in the corner and a little staining on the bottom. But as a kid, I didn't care. It was like something that was the possibility that I could afford. And I was a big customer of him. So he said I could put it on layaway. So I did a lot of chores around the house. I had to cut the grass. If it was wintertime, I had to go out and shovel the sidewalks, walk to my grandparents' house, shovel their sidewalks. So it was a lot of labor in order to get this card. So that's my very first Mantle card.
Nice.
So great. So Melissa, can you tell us a little bit about like how you got, I mean, clearly your dad kind of helped you get into it, but how did you get into collecting cards? Like when did it start for you?
I was about 7 years old. I'm 56 now. So I started by cutting the cards off the Hostess boxes and getting the Kellogg's cards out of cereal boxes. And I was a tomboy growing up. I loved baseball. I played minor league, played 3 years of Little League. I was always playing sports with the boys. So I remember my mom always going to the pharmacy, and she'd go to the cash register, and there'd be, the boxes of packs of baseball cards. And she saw that I was interested. So she'd bring me a pack home every once in a while. And back then it was, I think 1977 are the Topps cards I remember when I first started getting them. So I was just happier than a pig and you know what, to get a pack of cards and chew the gum and, got a shoebox and started filling up the shoebox. So
right.
That's how it started.
That's incredible. Anybody else that just looked at that card would be like, oh, cool, Mickey Mantle, all right, PSA 1. But boy, that card has so much of a bigger story than that.
Yeah, I mean, I bought it raw, obviously, back when I was a long time ago, 12 years old.
Right. Awesome. Great start. Thank you, Melissa. All right, Mike.
All right, well, mine might have a little bit of a theme, just personal stories and stuff. But I'm going to start off with one. And I actually did a whole video on this way back, and those are the type of videos that not a lot of people watch. But I was named after my great grandpa on my mom's side, and I was a few months old, and we went from Kansas to Arkansas for family reunion. Well, he was sick with cancer and dying, and he had been miserable and depressed, but he wanted to hold me because I was his namesake. And my mom and dad were petrified of him holding me because he was so frail, but they propped a pillow up and he was able to hold me. And that was like the highlight of the last couple of months. And he passed away a little bit after that. But I'd always known that he liked the Brooklyn Dodgers. Now, why a guy who lived his entire life in Arkansas would like the Brooklyn Dodgers, I couldn't tell you. But I was always curious, who's his favorite baseball player? So it kind of set me on a detective hunt. And I was just trying to figure out stuff and putting pieces of the puzzle together. And I kind of got sidetracked and didn't do it. And a few years ago, my wife and I went on vacation. We were going to go to Hannibal, Missouri, where Mark Twain's from. But we stopped at some places along the way. Well, we stopped at Hamilton, Missouri, which is where J.C. Penney's from. And I'm taking a picture of a mural on the side of his building. And there's a picture in that mural of this guy. And it's Zach Wheat. Now, that really started making me think, now, wait a second. Could it possibly be? So I started doing some research, and it turns out that my great-grandpa and Zach Wheat, not only were they born the same year, they died the same year. And I started looking about where he's from. Obviously, he's from Missouri. He lived in Kansas for a brief period of time. Well, I started putting the pieces together. Now, who would I have liked growing up? And finally, the last puzzle piece was that I talked to one of my mom's cousins and said, did your grandpa ever tell you who his favorite player was? And he goes, no, only that he played for the Brooklyn Dodgers a long time ago, and he was from Missouri. So all those different puzzle pieces going together, and I'm almost 100% confident that this is the one, the player that's was my great-grandpa's favorite player. So Zach Wheat holds a special place for me. And this is the only Zach Wheat card I have for now, but I'm sure I'm going to get some more over the years.
That's amazing.
Great
Love
story.
Drew, go for it.
All right. So I've told this story a lot, but I'm going to rehash it in case anybody hasn't heard it or you forgot. So the first cards I ever saw ever in my life was in 1978. My older brother had an accident. He was hospitalized for a week. And we came from very humble means. We didn't have money for baseball cards by any means. I had no idea what they were. I was younger than him, or still am younger than him. But so our associate pastor thought, well, what is a little kid like? Must like baseball cards. So he brought him a box of Topps baseball cards from 1978. Well, my brother opened them up and the gum and the whole thing, brought them home. And, we started looking through them and I was amazed by these things. I was just learning about the game. I was just learning about the process and stuff. And through talking from my dad, talking to my brother, learned who some of these players were. And the one player I remember my uncle, who was a Yankee fan, telling me about in 78 was Reggie Jackson, who's a big deal. And we went through the box and sure enough, we had a Reggie Jackson. Well, those cards, we looked them over constantly. We were always handling them, but we didn't like play with them. We weren't flicking them or flipping them or anything like that, but we would lay them out on a table. And then when we would want to put them back together, we would do what you would do with a deck of playing cards and we'd push them back together. Well, that softened the edges and stuff, but they weren't creased, so they weren't worn in that regard, but they were all soft around the edges. Well, I have a very strong connection and memory of 1978, a lot of the different images, and I didn't have another baseball card for a number of years. Anyway, fast forward a long time later, I'm an adult, I'm a collector, I've turned into a vintage collector, so on and so forth, and I'm getting heavier into the Net 54 community. And I thought, you know what, it'd be kind of cool. I think I'm going to build a 1978 set. So I go on Net 54 and I'm like, hey guys, tell the story about my brother, the surgery, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'd like to put the 1978 set together and I'd like a nice condition set, not great high grade, but nice condition. So if anybody has a lot of cards that they're willing to sell me, let me know and I'll start making my list and all that. Well, for some reason, one of the other members on Net 54 was like, they love the story. And they're like, this is fantastic. Hey, let's build this set for him, guys. And so, Drew, put your address out there and we'll just start sending you lots. And sure enough, within days, I'm getting packages with 10 cards or 100 cards or 50 cards. Nobody wanted any money. I'm like, I'll pay for these. I'll pay for shipping. I'll do something. No. Let's do this as a community. And this was my first real experience within a community of vintage baseball card that all of us here on YouTube now, talk about constantly. But this was, way before I was even knew YouTube. I knew YouTube. I didn't know about this part of it. But anyway, so sure enough, within, I don't know, a month or so, I had a complete 1978 set, and I didn't spend one penny on it. Everybody was just handing. I had doubles and all this other stuff, and so I was like, "Well, does anybody need these?" And I'm like regifting them to who wants them and all this other stuff. And there's not like super high end expensive cards, but there are a few that are nicer. Now I did have a few. I already had the Eddie Murray and I had the Paul Molitor, but it was just so great getting these, and it was so much that feeling like when I was a little kid of just opening a package and just looking through and remembering all that script on the bottom, on the back of the card. There was the game. That's how I learned a lot about the rules of baseball, was to play that game on the back. And but I did say one thing. I said, one of the cards I remember the most is the 1978 Reggie Jackson. So I really wanted to get a lower grade, soft edged corner copy for no other reason than just memory's sake, and someone sent me that card. So here's my 1978 Reggie Jackson, which is an absolutely classic image. The big swing, that beautiful shield, and it is soft. When you feel it, it feels like Kleenex, like it's so soft and handled and worn. And this is just out of my binder. The rest of the set looks great. It's nice sharp corners and all that other stuff. But this card right here brings me right back to being a 6-year-old kid sitting on the floor with my brother, going through cards, put them out by alphabetical or player or team or whatever we decide to do that day. But this Reggie Jackson is just a huge connection to the start of my baseball card collecting career. And the fact that a community that I didn't know personally all came together and were like, "Hey, let's help this guy out and let's build this set with him." So there's my first card.
Amazing. I don't think I've ever really heard of a set being built that way.
Right.
Pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it was really, really amazing, and I was super touched. So
That's a great Reggie.
So for the YouTube community, I am now wanting to build the 1952 tops because it was my dad's. No, I'm teasing.
All right, everybody, get on that right away. Yeah. Okay, Melissa, back to you.
Okay. One of my dream cards when I was younger was to get a Nolan Ryan rookie card. And back then, it was around 1990. I went to this local card shop, and it was a different card shop from the guy I used to buy from before. And he had 2 Ryan rookies in there. One was really off center, and the other one looked pretty nice. So I'm looking at it, and he had a price of $900 on it. I'm a college kid. So I'm like, I don't know, I'm not going to be able to afford that, but I really want it. I said, "Would you take trade?" And he's like, "Sure, it depends on what you have." And I told him, I had a ton of 80s stuff. Now, I don't just collect baseball. I collect football, basketball, hockey. And I brought in like 3 shoe boxes of stuff. And a lot of my stuff was mint. I had some 86 Flair basketball. No Jordan, but I had Patrick Ewing and Isaiah Thomas. Football, I had Joe Montana, Jerry Rice. Baseball, your typical 80s guys, your Ryne Sandberg, Wade Boggs, Tony Gwynn. And I had, the Tops, the Flair, and the Donruss. So I'm bringing all this stuff in, and he's adding it all up. And he's like, "Well, you're a little short." And I'm like, "Well, I have some more stuff." I brought another shoebox of non-sports, and I had, the Star Wars cards from the 70s. And I don't know if you guys remember Kiss, the band Kiss.
Sure, yeah.
But I had all those Kiss cards, and, he's going through all those, and he's like, "Well, I think we can make it work." So I was able to get my Nolan Ryan rookie card.
Wow.
Beautiful.
So
That's great.
obviously, it was raw, but it's really nice. And I was happy with it. And little by little, I've been picking up those 80s rookies cards, just to get them back in my collection. But I was happy to have this.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Fantastic. Good vibes tonight. Mike, on to you.
All right. Well, this one will be pretty short and sweet. So when I was a kid, I started collecting in 1982. And not long after that, I went to a bookstore, and there were these little magazines. And I know some
Sure.
people have shown these before. Mangini's has shown these before. But I always thought it would be cool to have some of the cards in here. Of course, I do have some of the cards. I've got this one, I've got that and that. But the card that always caught my eye as a kid was the Mathewson.
Mm.
Now, obviously, I'm a very low budget collector. I don't have a lot of money at my disposal, but I was able to a little while ago pick up my version of the Matty. And to me, for my price point, that's still a beautiful card because I can see Matty in all of his handsomeness. He was a very photogenic player. But this, out of all the cards that I saw on here, for some reason, the one on the back, that Mathewson, just always called out to me. And so when I was able to get this one for the price I got it for, it was a no-brainer. I absolutely had to do it. So
Yeah.
I want to show one more thing, though, since I've shown a couple of T205s. This isn't a card, but this is a recent pickup of mine that I think a lot of you might have seen. And it is this. I don't know how that's going to show up, but that is Scott Reindeer Studios Parallax picture or painting of Walter Johnson. And so I purchased that from our friend Scott, and I'm going to pick that up at Strongsville next year. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Now, is that the next T205?
Actually, I'm hoping to get a T206 portrait. That is my all-time #1 goal card that I can reasonably afford to purchase. But the T205 would not be a bad backup for that if I can't find one at that show that I would like.
And like roughly, Mike, how old were you when you remember seeing the back of that magazine?
Oh, I must have been around 83, 84. So I would not even have been a teenager yet, or just become a teenager. So it was right when I first started collecting.
Sure. That's so great that like the card that stood out to you was a pre-war card. And then
Oh yeah,
now you have
I
it.
started collecting vintage from the get-go,
Right.
right from the very beginning. So
Mike, in case you were wondering, your reindeer's favorite.
Scott's everybody's favorite.
I
Really.
have heard him say that a few times, but yeah. Okay, Drew.
All right. So the first one was a story about a personal connection. This one I decided to do something that I noticed on a card recently that I had had for many, many years. And I love that rediscovery of something. Like, how did I never see that before? How do I never know that? And it's not a big deal, but it was still kind of funny to me, especially for anybody who knows me personally. So anybody who watches my channel much or knows me well knows that my favorite vintage set is the 1954 Red Heart. I got the complete set. I love the set. It was the first vintage set that I put together that I was kind of careful with the condition. I had put a few previous ones together, but I didn't care as long as it was filling a spot. I didn't care if it was written on or creased or torn or whatever. But the 54 Red Heart, I was like, you know what? It's not a big set, 33 cards. I'm gonna try to take my time and get nicer copies of them overall. So there's Dan. We did a thing on this. In fact, Dan and I talked about what I'm about to say on my special with him months and months ago. But anyway, in 1954, if you know your baseball history, this is at the tail end of an amazing run from one of the best sluggers for a short period of time of his career, which was Ralph Kiner. And as a side note, Ralph Kiner is the only, we'll say, ex-ball player that I ever saw or met in person outside of a stadium. I happened to be in New York City with a friend and his family in an elevator going to a restaurant, and my buddy's dad nudged me. He's like, look, and Ralph Kiner was standing next to me, and I ended up getting his autograph. But anyway, Ralph Kiner, had this amazing run right from the get-go. He led the NL in home runs, I think 8 years in a row or tied. And but in 1953, which is what we're going to talk about, he had tailed off. He didn't win that year, but he was only a couple of ways still. I believe had 36 or 38 home runs that year. And so the reason I'm telling you this is I'm going to start by showing my Red Heart, Ralph Kiner, because at the time in 1954, when these first came out, Kiner was still going to be a huge name. I mean, he had established himself as this major slugger year after year after year. just a big power hitting guy. And so what I noticed on this was not on this card, but on another card I'll show you in a second, but on the bio on the back. And what I like about the Red Hearts is they do, have the little advertisement for their dog food. But other than that, it's very typical. It's got a nice bio. It's got some statistics. And I also discovered, this is a by the way, that the batters' backs are different than the pitchers' backs because they just have a different arrangement, which is kind of cool. But anyway, but the back write up on this Kiner is very friendly, which it says he's a home run hitter of note. I'm sorry, I got to make sure I can read this in the light. He's always been a dangerous clutch hitter. Came up with Pittsburgh in 1946, traded to Chicago in 1953, led or tied for the NL in home run every single year from 46 to 52, and then on with some statistics. So it's a very flattering write-up for this power hitter. What I noticed was the difference when you read the write-up of the Mickey Mantle. Now, of course, now the Mickey Mantle is the key card in the set, like he is in every set from when he was a player, and I'm lucky enough to have a really nice copy of it. And Mantle in 53, now he's towards the beginning of his career. He's shown tons of promise, but he's supposed to be this, the kid that takes over from DiMaggio, and a lot of, you guys know the stories. But what I found interesting was either this guy was a Yankee hater who wrote this or a DiMaggio lover. Because remember, two power hitters. The Kiner is great slugger, led the league, blah, 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 dangerous is what they say. But with Mantle, it says, although he is troubled by a bad right knee, which is fine, he proved his worth with the Yankees. He's a great home run hitter, but like many other heavy hitters, he strikes out frequently. And that's his buyout. So half of his buyout is just saying, yeah, he's okay, but he does strike out a lot. And I think that's kind of funny. And I have had this Mantle for years and years, and just recently was reading the back of it. I thought it's kind of funny that they're sort of like, yeah, he's not that great, So anyway, it's just kind of funny the difference in the write-ups and what has happened in the next 70 years between these two cards and, where they are in the hobby and within history. And while Kiner was a great home run hitter and definitely deserves his place in the Hall of Fame, he ended up not being a Mickey Mantle. So that's just something I thought was funny, was the bio on that card.
Right. And it's great too, because it's like, well, who wrote those and how much did Red Heart really care in terms of like the PR side of things? And, because like who's looking, like they're just thinking, okay, some kids are going to look at this and then it's going to be forgotten. Little did they know that, 50, 60 years later, here we are talking about it still, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Really funny. Okay, let's get back to the start. Melissa.
Okay, well, today is Johnny Bench's birthday, and he is one of my favorites because I'm a Reds fan. So here's my Johnny Bench rookie card.
Nice.
But I want to show you another piece that I have. I used to work in a tennis club. I used to work in the pro shop, and I used to wear my baseball hats all the time. And this one guy would come in, and he'd always see me wearing a hat. A lot of times I wear my Reds hat. And he's like, I think I have something you might be interested in. So he brings this in. I don't know if you guys can see it.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing it was a giveaway at one of the Buffalo Bison games in 1967. And over here on the end is Johnny Bench.
Oh, that's great.
A really
awesome.
young, they just say John Bench on it.
Wow.
And the only other people I know in this is like Don Zimmer. He was the head coach. And that's Hal McRae.
Oh, wow.
Those are the only other names that I know. But I thought it was really neat to see like a really young Johnny Bench. And I like team pictures, so.
Absolutely. And the fact
cool.
that like somebody just gave that to you is amazing.
Yeah. Well, I gave him $20. I don't know if that
okay,
was
that's still a good deal.
I just thought it was kind of a neat picture.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great piece.
Sweet. Okay, Mike.
All right. Well, I'm going to talk about one that I just talked about recently on a video of mine, but a lot of people who are watching this, I'm sure, are not subscribed to or saw that video. But when I was a kid, like I mentioned before, I started collecting vintage from the get-go. And I had a mom who loved that I collected, and I had a dad who hated it. I mean, he absolutely hated that I collected. He never would buy me anything. He was always encouraging me to sell everything. But
Did you ever figure out why? Like, why was he so against it?
I think it had, I mean, and most of the cars I bought was from shoveling snow and mowing. I think it is just his background. He came up where he didn't have stuff like that. He was a huge sports fan. Don't get me wrong, a huge sports fan. But I had a lot of stuff too. That's probably why. I mean, it was anywhere you looked in the house, Mike's baseball cards were laying around. So one day he woke me up on a Saturday, and he and my mom had been out to some garage sales. And he woke me up and he told me to come into the dining room, and he reached into his pocket that normally had some cigarettes, and he handed me a little stack of cards. Now, he didn't know anything about them. I knew exactly what they were. And the very first card that he showed me, and these were all just raw, they weren't in any penny sleeves or nothing. We're talking like mid 80s. But the very first card that he showed me was this. And I'm like flabbergasted. I'm looking at these cards, and you can see, I mean, this is a really nice condition one. All these cards happen to be in nice condition. Well, as I'm looking through these, he gets up and he goes into the kitchen, and he comes back and he has a sack like this, just a lunch sack. And it's filled up to about right here of 61 tops and some 62s. Now, I'm not going to show them all because I did a video about this, but I'm just, my mouth is salivating. I'm looking at all these cards, and they're such great condition. And I've sold a lot of those over the years when I was a dealer too. But I asked my dad, I'm like, where did you get these? And he explained that he and my mom had gone to some garage sales, and this little old lady had a table full of those sacks. And he just happened to start looking through some of them, and he saw these with cards, and he didn't really want to get them for me because he never got me any cards. But this time he did. And I asked him how much he paid, and he goes, 25 cents. I said, you paid 25 cents for each of these cards. I mean, that's a steal. And he goes, no, I paid 25 cents for the whole sack. And my mind is blown. He gets up and he walks into the kitchen. He comes back with another sack. And by this time, my heart is just pounding. I don't even know what's going to be in here. And he sits in front of me, and I peek into the sack, and there's a bunch of nuts and bolts. He was more excited about that sack of nuts and bolts than the sack of cards. And he goes, I only paid $0.25 for this too. And he's passed away, and I inherited all his stuff, but I still have that sack of nuts and bolts in here. And I bet you he never used a single one of them. I bet you he never used a single one. But that is my most special hobby memory, because he never bought me any cards after that. We clashed a lot. We had a difficult relationship at times, but for that one day, getting this and the other 61s, and of course I sent this off for grading this year, but oh man, I can't top that ever. That just it makes me look back at the bad times and realize they weren't that bad.
Sure.
There's a lot of good, and that's what I hang my hat on.
Absolutely. That's great. Thanks for sharing that. Drew.
Yeah, that is, I watched that video of yours, Mike, and one of the best stories. I mean, absolute, I don't know. It's not even a classic. It's just amazing because it hits everything. So, anyway, great story. So thanks for sharing it again. So the next card I picked up, I did a video on this, I don't know, 8 months ago or whatever, but it's another one of those things where it's a card I've had for years and years in my collection. I know the card. When I show it, you'll probably recognize it, at least if you don't have it. And it's important to me because it's a Pee Wee Reese, and it's not the 53 Bowman, sorry. But it is a Pee Wee Reese, and of course he's my PC guy, and I try to get all his cards. And so this was one of the ones I got along the way, and it's sitting there. I have my cards on my racks in chronological order, so it's first. So it's just one of his 2 rookie cards, and it's the one that he shares in the 1941 double play set. And some people love this set, and some people it's just okay. I like this set. I think it's a nice entry. It gives a little bio and stuff on the front, and it pairs them up with another player. Well, if you can't tell who the other player is another young player on the Brooklyn Dodgers at the time, which is Kirby Higbee. And if you don't know who Kirby Higbee was, I'll remind you, if you've seen the movie 42, the Jackie Robinson story, There was a number of players that were against Robinson joining the team, and there was the one guy that stood up to Branch Rickey and said, if he doesn't go, I'm going, whatever. Next thing you know, he gets traded, and his sort of fun line or cute line throughout the rest of the movie is it's Pittsburgh. He got traded to Pittsburgh. So they chose Robinson over Higbee, and he goes on. Well, what I found interesting was of course, this was made in 1941. So this is well before Jackie Robinson was known for anything. He wasn't even in the army yet to make his stand in the army. He was still a college player. So, but major league players, they just pair these two young guys up on a card. But you also know the other side of that story of who Pee Wee Reese was to Jackie Robinson. And they really over dramatize it in the movie of him going up and putting his arm around him in Cincinnati and all that stuff. And that may or may not be true and all this other stuff. But they never denied that story, neither Reese nor Robinson. But what they did talk about was Robinson did say how Reese was one of the catalysts to welcome him in as a person, not just a teammate, but a person. And he did stand up for Robinson amongst his teammates when pressure was he didn't have to. And for those reasons and so many others of his character is why I collect Pee Wee Reese. But what I find interesting on this card is they just happened to pick two players that by the time Robinson came around were so completely on opposite sides of how they reacted to Robinson joining the Dodgers, to where one went on and continued to be a Hall of Fame career and is known for his welcoming in and loving respect of Jackie, and the other one hated not just Jackie Robinson but colored people so much. Not too long after that, he was out of the majors. He had a very difficult life. He ended up being arrested, and he was imprisoned in the 60s. He died. And Higbee just had this miserable, grouchy man. And years later, after Robinson played and retired, and he did what he did and integrated baseball and all that other stuff, they went back to the old players, and all of them said, I was wrong. I was young. I was jealous. I was mad or whatever, except for Kirby Higbee. He was the one player that said, if I could go back and do it again, I'd do the same thing because I didn't want to play with an African-American or with a colored person. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they were on the same rookie card way back in 1941 just shows the coincidental juxtaposition of the two of them and how they veered off in their career and how they both stood their ground for what they believed within the racial conflict that was going on. And it's just interesting that this is on Pee Wee Reese's rookie card, or one of his two. And but anyway, that's the story I want to give if you hadn't heard that or saw that video.
Yeah, appreciate that, Drew. I just finished I've talked about it a few times in the past few months. I just finished the Boys of Summer book, and there's a whole chapter in there where he both visits with Robinson, but also visits with Reese. And, Reese talks about observing what Robinson went through. But he also just talks about playing with Robinson. And one thing that I think is worth mentioning, which is kind of obvious, but it can be overlooked, is that a shortstop and a second baseman are going to have to get to know each other if they're going to be any good at what they do, because they're constantly working together. I think of, for me, the Phillies being my team, I think of like Jimmy Rollins and Chase Utley. Those two guys were close just by the nature of what they had to do together as a double play team, duo. So I think that has a lot to do with it too. Just those guys were in each other's workspace, if you will, day in and day out. And that's one thing that really drew them together. Mm-hmm. Really cool. Okay, Melissa, back to you.
Okay, well, I remember when my parents took me to my first card show, and I had saved up about $30. And I'm thinking, well, what can I buy for $30? And it's funny that you guys are talking about, the Dodgers, and here's the actual card I bought, $30.
There you go.
And I couldn't believe that I can get a Jackie Robinson, that he was only $30.
Right. My God.
Thinking about, all the other, like Mickey Mantles and Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, they were all just so much more than this card. And it just seemed like the perfect card. I spent all my money on the one card, but it was so worth it for me. And of course, I sent it into PSA, and it gets a 3, but I don't care.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
So, I love the 55 set. I was actually working on trying to put that set together. I have the Koufax, but I don't have the Clemente. But I am thinking about going to Strongsville. So if I could save up some money, and I might be looking for the Clemente there. So
Nice.
We'll see.
Fantastic.
Very cool. So this is Stephen with a PH. So that was the first Jackie card that he picked up. Awesome. Mike, over to you.
So I'm going to talk about a card, and Drew just talked about Jackie Robinson, and one of the things I'm most proud about from my generation and is that we were very colorblind when it comes to promoting players or collecting players and propping up. And I'm so proud of that fact. And, we've got a lot of people now saying, hey, we need to talk about Larry Doby more, or we need to talk about some of the Cuban players, or, guys from like Manny Minoso. But one thing that we don't hear a lot about in terms of promotion, and I've tried to do this a little bit with some of the guys that I've talked about in some of my videos, but it is Native American players. Now, the reason I feel so passionately for this is the grade school I went to is called Broken Arrow Elementary in Lawrence, Kansas. And that land was donated to the school district by Haskell Indian Nations University, which is a junior college. Years before it was a junior college, it was just a school for Native American kids. And this particular guy that I'm going to show you a card from, his dad had sent him off to school after school in Oklahoma, and he kept running home because he didn't want to go to school. So he figured if I send him up to Lawrence, Kansas, that's too far away. He won't want to run home. And that player is Jim Thorpe. So Jim, it was not an athletic school. It wasn't a junior college at the time, but he did go to like a prep school type of a deal there when he was younger. Now, again, the connection with my school and Haskell is increased by the fact that my favorite youth baseball coach was a gentleman by the name of Rob Doherty. I grew up with his son, and we were always trying to get him. All the other parents were trying to get him to coach our team because he was a great baseball player in his day. And he finally became our coach my 6th grade year, and that was the only time that we ever won the championship. Now, it helped that myself and a couple other guys hit puberty first, but I've talked to Rob a little bit over the years, and Rob really taught me a lot about Native American players as a kid. He also was the assistant coach for my American Legion baseball team. But Rob would tell me about guys like Allie Reynolds and Bob Johnson. So I became huge fans, and I have a lot of their cards. But this is the coolest thing. I got to show this. So I just found out, and this book is out, but Rob got with some guys with Saber, and he just came out with this book.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going to interview him about this. And I know he's done some interviews on this, but this is a book that he basically edited. There's a bunch of well-known guys on here, but again, this was put up by Saber, if you know who Saber is. But I started reading this, and there's a bunch of breakdowns of different players. But I like how he actually sent this to me, and he goes, Mike, to a baseball fan, historian deluxe, and a great friend, enjoy from Coach Rob Doherty. And that just it really touches me that he sent me this book. And one of the reasons I know he did this is for the fact that you don't hear a lot of people talking about Native American ball players. It's just like an afterthought. They don't get the publicity that they deserve. And they've been around, way before guys like, Doby and Jackie Robinson broke the color line. These guys have been playing for decades. So it's a very interesting book. Hopefully I'll be able to get that interview with him and make a video about it, but I'm pretty excited about it.
That's amazing. Great. Thanks for sharing that, Mike. Definitely I'm looking forward to the interview for sure. Drew.
All right. So this is the last card I pulled, and this is a card that I've always found interesting because of the story behind it. Not a personal story, but just because of card company stuff. I would venture to say that most people watching this already know this story, but you never know. I mean, I didn't know the story until I'd first heard it, so we'll say it anyway. But one of the things when I talk to my kids, my children, is I try to teach them that when they interact with a person, that they need to try to put that other person first, that they need to, quote, leave that person in a better place than they were when you got there. Meaning always be kind, always be generous, always be helpful, always be appreciative of who that person is as a person. And in the business world, where I've run a business, I own a small business, I work within a business now. I try to do the same thing, and it really personally irks me when businesses treat people terribly, like whether it's employees or customers or anything else. And I don't want to get too far off on all that, but it irks me when I hear stories of, well, we'll just replace them. It's just like a people are nothing more than numbers. We just got to hit the numbers. When I used to run a business for years and years, my philosophy was always take care of your employees first, your customers second, and the numbers will take care of themselves. And the way I ran that business proved that, at least in my opinion. The reason I'm telling you this is, while I love the history and everything else, I've never been, we'll say, impressed with some of the tactics that Topps had taken in the way that they treated people or other companies. I understand they were in business. I understand they were trying to get the biggest piece of the pie of that market. But some of the tactics they would use was not, I don't know, it just didn't sit well. It doesn't sit well with me. And I know what they did, and without them, the cards would be way different. So I'm not denying that they did stuff. However, could they have done it nicer in certain respects? One of those things was signing players. We all know they wanted to sign exclusive contracts with people, and even when they did, they would pay them practically nothing. But when they got the permission, they would pay them, almost no money for the players, even the superstars, and then they would make tons and tons of money by printing their pictures. Anyway, all this is not new to probably anybody out there. But 1959, spring training, Topps representatives go down and they're trying to see what players they can line up and sign, and they go to the Dodgers. And they're looking at all these prospects and all these players, and they're trying to lock them up. And through some, I'm assuming, talks and discussions, they see a young kid who's skinny little kid who doesn't hit very well, and they say, you know what, he's not even worth it. So just so you know, unless you were an established player, if you were a prospect, the offer to lock you into a lifetime, long-term exclusive contract was $5. Topps would pay them $5 for the exclusive right to use them. And they said no to this kid. Well, little did they know that kid made the team, ended up having a breakout year, and within a few years was a fire plug for the Dodgers for their run through the 60s. And
Right.
And they came back to him, and he said, you know what? I wasn't worth $5 back then. I'm not signing with you. And he refused to sign with Topps for years. Even in that series of years, and a lot of you guys already knew who I'm talking about, he won the NL MVP one of those years, and they couldn't put a card out of him because they didn't have a right to him. So what he did was he went to the fledgling company of Fleer and said, yes, you can put a card out. So the only card of him until I believe 1957, even though he started in 1959, is a 1963 Fleer Maury Wills. And, at this point, he had already 103 stolen bases, broke Ty Cobb's record. And, he's on his way to be the superstar at LMVP. But he stood up and said, hey, you're not going to pay me $5 because you didn't think I could do it. You know what? You don't need me then. And I think that's kind of a cool story, even though a lot of us also know years later, he ended up giving them permission because in the 80s, like the Kmart, set that they had, they made a reprint of a card that didn't exist of him in 1962 when he was the MVP. But it's still interesting that this is Maury Wills. Technically, it's his rookie card, even though this card came out 4 years after he started playing and 3 years before Topps even put him on a card. So anyway, it's an interesting story. If no one's heard it before,
Right.
now you've heard it. But if you have, it's still a good card, and I just wanted to share it.
Absolutely. No, yeah. I mean, that's the thing about these things is you can kind of take them for granted when you've heard the story, but there's plenty of people out there it's going to be their first time. So appreciate it. Guys, we're just about out of time, but we do have a little bit of time if anybody has like a rapid fire, like one holds up a card. Anybody have an extra card that they pulled that they want to show real quick?
I'll show this one just
All
because
right.
it's the story behind it. So this was, until a recent day, my favorite day being part of the YouTube community. So I'm driving back from hanging out with guys like Chris from Missouri and Joe Redneck Collector and some other guys in Missouri. And I'm listening to, I think it is Jason Everyday Card Collector and Sammy Thunder. And Jason's like, there's this item I've been looking at for months on eBay, and I should have bought it. I just kept hesitating, but dang it, somebody bought it. And I'm driving, listening to it, and hearing him describe it, and I realize it's this. So I had to give him a hard time. That's when I really started feeling connected to the community by, I collected as a kid alone. I didn't realize I'm going to buy cards up against the other people that are wanting the same thing. But I literally looked at this card for just a couple hours and was like, I got to have it, and took it. And he'd been looking at it for about 3 months. So I have to give him a hard time about this.
Oh, that's awesome.
Every time I buy it.
Never ever
you
sell
felt
that card to
connected.
him.
You felt connected when you got to start rubbing it in.
Absolutely.
That's great.
That's the law of you snooze, you lose. And
Right,
that's the way
exactly.
it is. That's great. That's a great piece too.
Hey, Mike, it's my birthday in a couple weeks. You could send that to me if you want.
I would have, but you stole my thunder because I was going to show my Ryan
Oh.
rookie. But mine was $9 when I bought it. in
Wow.
1983.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I got it before Beckett started, manipulating the market and his price guides back then, because he did. But that's a whole.
Oh, he's shielding his magazines. What in the world?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, let's wrap it up on that thought. So until next Sunday night, guys, we have another round of guests next Sunday night. But thanks for joining in, everybody. And I want to say a special thanks to Drew, Mike, and Melissa for jumping in tonight, showing us cards and sharing stories. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Alex.
So, thanks for having us.
Great stuff, everybody.
All right. Guys, if you want to get in touch or have ideas for future sessions, or if you want to nominate yourself or another collector, email me at bowman53channel@gmail.com. Until next Sunday night, the bar is closed. Have a great week, everybody. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Yeah.